Smoke 'em if you got 'em. We came to the top all the way from the bottom. And I'm just trying to count my blessings. I wouldn't live here to go to heaven in a flying limousine.
What's up, ladies and gents? It's Idahodub with another NCAA Dynasty video. We are taking on the FCS Midwest Tuskers. What is a Tusker? Is that like a... it looks kind of weird. It looks like a boar's head kind of on their helmet. I have no idea what a Tusker is. If you guys know what a Tusker is, please leave a comment down below. I am very curious to know what creature is called a Tusker. Speaking of Tuskers, okay, this has nothing to do with Tuskers. Here are the standings for the Idahodub Bracket Challenge. Wow, things are not looking well. GD Hockert is still at the top, and it looks like he has the most possible points. Oh, I take that back. Maybe he doesn't. Anyways, my bracket is pretty much hosed. I have Michigan State winning it. I took Florida in every other bracket to go to the national championship except this one, the one with you guys. I had Syracuse in there. Man, this bracket is so jacked. It's been a crazy year, but there's the standings, the top 10-ish. You see some familiar names in there. Fat Sexy, Mech Monkey, Idaho Prodigy, a.k.a. Jacob Eck. Speaking of Fat Sexy, man, he left a long comment, but a pretty funny comment on my last Throwback Thursday video. You guys should go check that out. It's really long. I don't want to read about it, but Fat Sexy, do you write? You must be like a writer. I feel like you should be a blogger or have some sort of column in a newspaper. I don't even know if people still read newspapers. I don't. I definitely never got into the newspaper. And then, speaking of one of my last videos, this last Dynasty video, Nike Man talked about his spring break. Talking about some guys he saw fight on a spring break back when he was in the 8th grade. Apparently, they had to establish some ground rules before they fought. It took them like an hour to finally get into it, and then they ended up not fighting or something. It's like I said, I replied to him, but it's always important to establish ground rules when you're street fighting. You know, you want to have some clear boundaries so there's no unfair advantage, you know. That's how it always goes down in a street fight. Nice comment, Nike Man. So, yeah, we're taking on the Tuskers, down 7-0 quick, coming off that loss against USC in the last Dynasty video. Come on, Dub Senior, man. You're better than that. You got to coach your folks up. I'll show you guys the recruits in the next video or two. Recruiting seems kind of tough in this video or in this game for some reason. I know they changed it all around, but it just seems a little bit more challenging. Speaking of college football, Johnny Manziel's pro day this last week, getting tons of buzz. First of all, let's talk about pro days, because I'm not the biggest fan of the pro day. I guess I get it. I understand they want to see you make the throws, but you're not really making the throws, you know, with any coverage or anything like that. So Johnny Manziel, basically this week, he came out and he had the pads on and the helmet for his pro day. And most of the time, as I'm sure many of you are aware, the athletes don't wear their pads or their helmet. You know, they just go out there and throw it. It's like designed for the person who's having the pro day not to screw up. That's why when Teddy Bridgewater had a bad pro day, he couldn't make some of the throws when he wasn't under duress, you know, that it didn't look good, because it's basically set up for you to excel and look good. So Manziel comes out in the helmet and the pads. He's got like Drake playing in the practice stadium. He's got like a bunch of celebrities there watching him. The former president George Bush was there, George Bush Sr. And it was just like a media field day, and he just killed it. And he's just like a rock star, man. He gets it, you know. And I thought it was pretty genius, and it got me thinking. And I've kind of thought this for a while, but Johnny Manziel solidified it. Why don't players, for their pro days, because, you know, he did something that players don't do, and that's wear pads and a helmet. But if I was, you know, if I'm that good of an athlete, you know, and I'm not just doing this pro day and stuff to try and trick people, because I kind of feel like that's what some of these workouts do sometimes is, you know, they set up their pro workouts so they can essentially trick pro teams into drafting them. If I'm that confident in my abilities, I just set it up where I say, look, I got my wide receivers. Like, he has Mike Evans. He could have been like, I'm going to have Mike Evans in full pads. It's going to be like a pro day for him too. We're going to get he's kind of like, if you're that popular of an athlete, you probably have some pro athlete friends, or you're able to connect to them. You have an agent. I'd tell my agent, I'd be like, look, who else do you represent? Do you represent a top cornerback or safety? Do you represent Revis? Do you represent Sherman? I would have my agent reach out and see if I could bring one of the top corners or defensive backs in the NFL into my pro day, cover my receiver, and then I would have somebody pass rush me, and I would just go out there and do my pro day that way. You could still set it up to where you looked good, but you would also have to actually make decisions, and you'd have to, throw the ball perfectly. And I think that would be better. I think the scouts would be really receptive of that, unless, of course, you did a crappy job. But can you imagine that? Imagine, in my head, this plays out. Johnny Manziel comes out in pads. He's like, hey, I want to thank you all for coming. I love that he did that. And I want to thank you all for coming. It's going to be a little different today. I'm rocking the pads and the helmet. I'm also going to have DeMarcus Ware rushing me, and Darrell Revis is going to sit out there and cover my wide receiver, Mike Evans. Hopefully we can put on a show for you guys today, and then go out there. He's got, Drake in the background bumping. I just imagine the scout. They were already like eating it up with what he did. Do you imagine that? Having a pass rusher and a cornerback out there, like the NFL's top one? I just think that would go over really, really well. So that's my 2 cents on that. A lot of football news this week, man. The Union at Northwestern that's probably going to be allowed to stay. It's interesting. It's kind of an exciting time for college football. Ooh, speaking of top corners, nice pick. There we go. It's an exciting time for college football, man. I like that we've discussed this in a few videos, and it kind of seems we always seem to go back to it, but college athletes getting paid. But I like the idea of the union, and I like that something's being done, because I think that's where it's ultimately going to have to be changed at, is at the athlete level. The coaches don't care, or they may care, but they're not going to do anything about it. The athletic directors, the schools aren't going to do anything about it because they're making bank off these players. Ultimately, it's going to come down, if they're going to change anything about the NCAA and get some of these players paid, it's going to come down to the players. And they're forming this union now, and once they go through the legal steps, it's going to take years. Ooh, B. Cooks. Right before the half, look at that. Up in the air, perfect spiral, somewhat of a perfect spiral, a little wobbly there. B. Cooks doesn't care, though. I'm excited to see where he goes in the draft, by the way. So, yeah, man, it'll be cool. The players that are putting this into motion now, probably it won't benefit them at all, but the gears are moving. Everything's moving in the right way for some changes to be made. And it's going to, it's exciting to see what's going to play out, because we've discussed before how football and basketball really drive college athletics. They're the two biggest money makers, and the rest of the sports don't really generate that much revenue. So when you talk about athletes getting extra getting compensated besides just a scholarship, that's where the gray area comes in, because it's like, well, you're on the swim team, like you don't generate any revenue. I heard an interesting thing this week that, college athletes are like, oh, I just get my scholarship, I just get my school paid for. That's not worth it. I make so much money for the school. But if you're an athlete on, the whatever tennis team or something like that, your scholarship is worth way more than a football player's, like, the star quarterbacks for Florida's scholarship is, because you're not generating enough revenue really to cover the cost of your scholarship, whereas the starting quarterback for Florida is generating enough revenue to pay for his scholarship and then some. So it'll be interesting to see. I think change is going to have to happen either via the union, or schools are going to have to take the approach that they're sick of the NCAA and they're just going to secede from that. They're just going to be like, we're done. We're out of here. I really think that that's like the next step, like maybe not just this individual school, but a conference. The SEC is like, we are done with the NCAA. We like to pay our players, so we're just going to secede from you guys, and we'll, get the best athletes because they can actually get paid. I think that's what ultimately is going to come down to. I don't know that the NCAA has staying power. If they do, they're just not going to be able to rake in as much cash as they currently do, because stuff's going to change. It's inevitable. the system is going to collapse someday for the NCAA. And it's major reform, or it's just going to be, they're just going to be capiche, gone. So it'll be exciting, man. It'll be interesting to see. I'm excited to see what comes out of this Northwestern deal. All right, 22-10, one more score, and I think that's going to be it. Trying to get B. Cooks another touchdown. Ooh. I promised him the Bolitnikov again, I think, at the end of last year to try to get him to stay. So I got to make sure he gets his touches every game. All right, Stormwood's going nowhere. 3rd and goal. Ooh, Storm in there for 6. 28-10. We just super simmed it. Final score is going to be 36-10. 3 touchdowns, 2 turnovers. Oh, man, like, come on. We can't be turning the ball over against the Tuskers, Dub. You need to step up your game, man. I need to get that defensive coordinator points up. But there it is, 36-10. The Beavs over the Tuskers. If you know what a Tusker is, please let me know. I want to thank you all for watching, though. I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time.